the Agile brand.
Hey there, it's your pal, Bonnie Habian, and welcome to the Worth Knowing podcast. If you like a real-life story that features grit, grace, and a whole lot of gumption, then you're in the right place. Get ready to hear from some courageous women who talk about how pivotal, teachable, aha moments have reshaped their confidence and delivered opportunities they never imagined. It didn't happen by chance, of course. They figured out new, sometimes uncomfortable ways to put themselves out there in a way that shouts, they get it. You'll hear intimate stories with actionable takeaways and some very secret sauce. Because everyone has an important story worth knowing. And you know what? The world needs it, and you deserve it. Hello there. Today I'm joined by Elina Vilk, Chief Business Officer at David's Bridal. Elina has worked for some of the top brands in business during her career: Yahoo, PayPal, Facebook, and most recently as the CMO at Hootsuite. Now, that focus on business most likely started when she was around 12 years old, and we're going to dive into that in a few minutes because it's very interesting. But it's come with its share of obstacles and sacrifice. Everything that is worthwhile does, right? And with nearly 25 years of marketing experience across top companies, Elina's journey is a real testament to resilience and innovation, and that's what we're going to dive in today. So, Elina, first of all, thank you. I am so happy to have you. I already like you very much just in our brief conversation before you came on, but let's tell our friends here, and that's what I call them, a little bit about Elina. Where did you grow up, and where did you start this spark of business?
Well, thanks so much for having me. My spark for business came at a really, really early age, and I would say out of necessity, primarily. I was an immigrant in the United States, coming out of multiple different countries, and I came to the States before I was 12 years old. And when we got here, my family, we were really poor, and as many immigrants are. And my school at the time was doing a drive for the 8th grade promotion to high school. And you could be the top 3 salespeople in the school, and then you win a trip that goes to the local theme park, or you could just pay to go to the theme park, which everybody else was doing. I knew that the only way I could get to this theme park, and I was an adrenaline junkie, so this was a big deal for me. The only way to get to this theme park was I had to be the top school drive candy sales winner. I had to be.
What was the name of the theme park? Do you remember which one it was?
Great America in California.
Okay.
For those of you that know that, it's in near San Francisco, not too far from there. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's exciting. So that's what drove you. Okay, so let me understand a little bit more about your life. When you say you were an immigrant, where did you immigrate from?
So I was born originally from Belarus. And then we lived in several different countries after that, finding our way before we could get green cards and move to the United States. So we kind of moved along the way. I learned English in London.
That's amazing. All right.
Yeah.
So you come over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're and it's a different way of life, I assume. But at the age of 12, and when you say poor, I'm going to ask you, what do you mean by that? Poor is in?
One pair of shoes, clothes that were secondhand, parents who were very highly educated with master's degrees who had to take on very, day-to-day roles and whatever they could find, from driving cars to whatever. So yeah, we were at the poverty line probably. And, we got out of that pretty quickly within a few years, but there were a few tough years there along the way. So, coming out of that, there's this concept of, I don't have a parachute. So I have to create a parachute for myself, right? And for my family.
We're going to hold on to that thought. That's an amazing thought. You had no safety net. You had no parachute. You had no way of being able to climb to higher places that you so wanted to go. But you must have had some sort of inner drive, and perhaps that's from your parents. I don't know. We all grow up with different thoughts in our head, with dreams. It sounds like you were very driven at a very young age. And do you think the poverty or what you saw here as maybe making dreams come true is what drove you?
Yeah, I believed that there was another way and there was another path.
Okay. That's a good thought. So let's take that now. So here you are at 12. Do you win?
Yes. In
Awesome.
fact, I think it was the highest drive of all time. And I learned about marketing, even though I didn't know that I was doing marketing.
Ah, no, you didn't. And you learned you were good at it.
I learned I was good at it. I I took a bus. The way the story goes, I took a bus. I took two buses to get to school, and I noticed that the buses were really crowded at certain times of day, in the morning on their commutes, and in the evening around 5:30. So we placed a table at a bus stop and started selling candies when people were getting off of work.
Yeah, I did read that, and that
Yeah.
so innovative, but that's adorable. So you have like a little table there, and you're
Yeah.
selling candies,
Sold
and
out.
people they feel bad for it or they're hungry.
Yeah.
We don't know. Either way, it
We don't
works.
know. I think they were hungry. I think they were hungry. Uh, we sold a ton of candy, and we ended up getting teams of kids doing it because I sold out.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
make signs. We learned about time and place and demand and supply, and the basics of marketing without knowing it was marketing. And I fell in love with it. It's
That's
like I
amazing.
can do this the rest of my life. There's sales concept in there. There's a lot. There's a lot there. So
Okay,
yeah.
so take me on your next journey, college, and then your first job, and now a little bit about your career as to where you are now at David Bridal.
College, I worked full time through college and all through my undergrad. Again, I paid my way through college myself and worked full time doing it. And I started taking on roles. Well, a lot of my friends were taking jobs wherever they could. I would take on office and administrative roles and roles where I could learn from.
Okay, so you had a different approach. You were saying when you're anything administrative, operationally, marketing, more of that kind of I can sit back, but I can learn how to do everything.
Hmm.
Okay.
Advertorials, admin assistants, even receptionists at doctor's offices, learning how business works. So at a very young age, through high school and college, those were the types of roles I would take. I was also very lucky because I was in San Francisco in the Silicon Valley during the boom. And so there were a lot of roles opening up and had this opportunity to go into an ad agency. And this is at the time when things for tech was just taking off and we still
Yeah.
said words like the interweb.
Mm. Oh, yeah, yeah, from the interweb.
The interweb. Yeah.
But yeah, but to be in that burgeoning time where things are exploding and you're a sponge just sucking it all up.
Yeah. And so I learned the ins and outs of it. And at that time, digital advertising wasn't a word. There was no such thing as social media. There was no such thing as social media management. None of this was, these were not concepts that were developed yet.
Yeah, I mean, but think about it. Really, in the last 7, 8 years, has social media just gotten to the point where you actually have disciplines to support it? But you're seeing all of this kind of back then at the very grassroots level.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, what do you do with that? Do you position yourself in a way to grow with it? Do you?
Yeah. So I saw that this was an interesting opportunity.
Mhm.
Uh, there were companies being formed at that time, and I was learning a lot about what was happening, and they were recreating physical presence into the web. So, an example of that was a company I worked for called Classified Ventures, and that was when all the newspapers got together and were reinventing. Well, what is that going to look like on the web? So,
Right, right.
yeah. So, like, what does real estate look like on the web? How do we recreate? We know that people go to look at yard signs when they're in physical, when they're walking around a physical neighborhood. What does that look like on the web? Should we? How do we show a neighborhood? How do we show real estate listings? Things like that. So, I think for me, I was very curious and insatiable, and in terms of that, and I also thought to myself, there's ways we can do things and we can solve these problems in very unique ways now based on where the demand is going. So, saw early on the demand was going to go here and that this is an area I need to invest in. But it was a big risk because it was a very big unknown. Nobody knew what was going to happen here at that time. So we were like the madmen back then of the digital age. We were coding some of the first ads out there and had like a 90% plus click through rate because there was no other
Oh,
ads
that's
on
yeah.
the web.
So
So
you know how to code as well?
I wouldn't say I know how to
Okay,
code.
you were
I would
scaring me
say
there for a second. You
no.
were scaring me.
I wouldn't
Okay,
say
I
I know how
got
to
you.
code,
You
but
had got
very
you.
basic. I mean, I'm talking very, very basic, very, very basic C
Very, very basic.
language,
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah, no. I'm not a
But anyhow,
developer.
you started to see that this is kind of a little,
Yeah.
you're testing around with it, seeing kind of how things are
Yeah.
going. All of a sudden, it shocks you. It's like, oh my goodness gracious, I've got this secret recipe of stuff that other people don't have. So, where do you take that knowledge and kind of explain to me how you start climbing up the ladder?
So a lot of companies were interested in this,
Yeah.
and by going deep into a skill set and promoting it, I was able to get jobs pretty early on, and I probably
Wow.
advanced a lot faster than I would have normally because I had expertise in this area.
Mhm. Mhm. Deep expertise where people similar to like how we're looking at AI now, probably,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
If you're able to get kind of a
Actually, very
angle.
similar.
Very
Very
similar, right?
similar. Yeah.
Right, and people
Yeah.
are looking for those experts. I'm seeing those roles evolve very quickly, like even junior level, right? The people that may have come out from just being immersed and understanding it better than some of us, very niche down in certain areas where they can figure out. So, okay, so then people are looking for this skill set. You start to develop, I assume, or go towards the marketing side. And it
Yeah.
seems like you have a very business focus, but also a love for marketing I can see from you just from talking with you. So I imagine
Yeah.
that's where it started.
I love marketing because it's an intersection of human behavior and business.
It is. Psychology's
And
in there.
yeah, psychology's in there. You can really start to understand people and problems and the inner complexities of it all. So it was a really interesting space. And then being in the digital world, it kind of lends itself to that. So I became an expert in it and started to build out campaigns for, and I was at, Yahoo for a while, which was the leader at that time, and then at Visa for 5 years and built out a lot of their digital campaigns. And from there, moved on to eBay and PayPal, and I was there for a decade. Really, just taking this subset of knowledge in the digital world and just continuing to expand it, all while learning different trades. Because Visa, for example, was known as just this amazing brand, and so learning from the people there and learning about the more traditional aspects of branding and brand marketing and all the different elements of that while I was there. So I think those are the kinds of things. And someone at Visa actually told me that you don't get promoted for all the things you do. You get promoted for the one thing you do really, really well.
All right. So let me ask you this. Along the way, and people want to, know that of course you've focused on expertise, you've really kind of drilled down and figured out where you shine. What obstacles? What are hard things that some of the hard things you went through? Obviously, your childhood in terms of, how you kind of grew up originally. What obstacles have you faced in your career?
Well, I had two boys throughout this whole process. I don't know that that's an obstacle, but it was an obstacle, especially in those days. My first child, there was no mat leave policy in my company.
None. None?
It was like
You had to
6
take disability, right? I remember
I
that's
had to
that's
take
how it was, yeah.
disability. I think I got 7 weeks.
That's not
Mm.
now being a mom, that is
Mm.
just yeah, it's tough.
I mean, I had to pump, there was no pump room, and I remember they put me in this office next to the CEO's office. It was a paper thin wall, and
How embarrassing is that?
yeah.
You're pumping next to the CEO in his oh god, that's a
Yeah.
nightmare, right?
Yeah, it was a nightmare. So, yeah, I mean, it was really hard. It was really hard going back to work. Like I said, I had no options. So going back to work when your baby is that small, it was pretty heartbreaking. And then having to pump multiple times a day just to feed him, in that setting and taking the time to do that was really challenging. And then fast forward to 7 years later, I have my second son and had a little more time this time, was at, a company that provided benefits like PayPal. It was great. But at that point, I had to make a decision because I had a team and I had to actually hire my own boss because I felt like I shouldn't fight for a more senior role because I'm going to be away and be a mom.
Right, right, and you know what? That is just so pointed right there, what you
Yeah.
just said, and so many of the listeners and people that I talk with, and they come up to me on a lot of people like to talk to you one-off, right?
Uh-huh.
This is the stuff they face, not feeling worth enough, not saying, "You know
Uh-huh.
what? I'm a mom now, so I should give it to someone else."
Yeah.
And that's really hard. So as a mom, And as a professional, you want to do well. You want to go as far as you can go. But then you've got these two little ones who are the light of your life. And you're constantly in your head wondering, what's the right way to go? So now you actually hire someone that you're going to report to?
Yeah. Can
That's
you believe
okay.
that? Can you
Yeah.
believe that? I was on the interview team and yeah, I mean, great guy, but my team ended up falling apart and I had ended up rehiring a lot of people back and I came back from mat leave and realized that that was the wrong decision.
Yeah.
That was the wrong decision. And I'll tell you that my older one is now in his 20s. And what's interesting is that he will tell me that actually me working is an inspiration to him because he learned along the way. And that's the thing that I'm so focused. I was so focused at that time at what I'm not giving him. You're always feeling guilty. Like you're always feeling like, oh, I'm not giving enough to my kids or I'm not giving enough to my team or I'm not giving enough here. The fact that he saw me do what I did and the fact that he saw me succeed and achieve and work so hard was a cornerstone for him to lead his life. And now he wants to achieve. He wants to do all these things. He's now thriving in his own way. So I think we forget that there's a whole person there and that what you do in your job, they see that and they watch
Yeah.
that and they view that. And it's not a bad thing that if you're not with them every second of the day, unless you choose to be, unless that's what you'd like it to be.
Yeah. And then, and I find as well, I mean, if you end up taking that road, which I think it is the hardest and best job ever, it's hard because,
Almost.
then you're giving up another part of yourself. So I don't know what the right answer is. I can say that I would think in the last, oh, see, she's so busy. She's so busy. In the last 5 years, we were just talking about, briefly how things have changed, right? So we wouldn't have had the opportunity to stay home or to work from home or to have more of that flexibility. You think about working for a national brand, you have to be in that office 5 days a week. That's not the case anymore.
No.
And you can find better talent, I'm finding. And I was a big naysayer on that. I'm like, no, you must be in the office every day. Now I say, well, gosh, you know what? It may be more cost effective and more efficient that we're able to hire someone with a deeper skill set. They may not be located here in,
Uh-huh.
in our, home office, but you know what? They're on and they work really hard.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think that there's a way to do things if you push through it and it's never perfect and there's no such I'll say this, I don't think there's such a thing as balance. I don't know if that's kosher to say. I don't think there is. I think there's a seesaw. And I think there's days where you're going to give more to your job, and there's days where you give more to your family, and it's okay to do that. The other day I flew back early from a board meeting to make my son's football banquet. You know, and I made the meeting and I made the banquet, right? And it wasn't easy, but it happened. And
Well,
so it's just
yeah.
life. It's just
Well, and
life.
the beautiful thing though is we're able to talk about that now.
Yeah.
10, 20 years ago, I don't think I would have been sharing. I flew back early because I went to my daughter's soccer game. But
Uh-huh.
now, and I work for a wonderful culture, like totally, probably the best culture I've worked
Well,
for, where you can be your true self, right? And I
yeah.
think at the end of the day, it's important for all women to understand that they are their employer self. They're,
Mhm.
definitely who that's absolutely hugely important, but we're also people who can provide value and insights. And in today's digital world, there's never been a time where we have the ability to reach so many people and provide and share value. But I find so many people still, especially women, are afraid. So have you found that along the way? You do not seem afraid to me. And perhaps that came from that time where you won that, you're going on the roller coaster and that Great
Yeah.
America theme park. But do you see that? And maybe you
Yeah.
can tell some of our friends here why they shouldn't be afraid.
It's been 25 years of this, right? And so I have noticed that when I feared, and this is the moment where I let someone else take my job, the job should have been mine. I did that out of fear of what I could accomplish for my team and what I thought I wasn't good enough to do, or I thought I wouldn't have enough time to do it. And the reality is that whenever I had that fear, it never came to fruition like I thought it would. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the times that I had been the bravest and taken on the projects that I was most fearful of were the times of highest success for me.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, and have you, and one of the things that, a lot of people say when they're on the show is you should always do something that is uncomfortable for you.
Hmm.
You have to kind of step into things before you're 100% ready.
That's right.
And you
That's right.
found that yourself. Okay. What
Yeah.
has been your compass in terms of when you have made decisions in your career? Are there certain things that you follow more than others to say, this is where I want to head? No, this isn't good.
There's a few things. So I think there's just to unpack that a little bit. I would say that what I believe that I can do is I believe that I can figure it out, but I don't need to know everything to figure it out. That's number one. You always have people around you that are strong, and you can lean on other people's strengths, and it's okay to ask them to lend their minds. In fact, if you don't believe that, how do you feel when someone asks you to lend your mind? Are you ready giving it? Are you readily giving that advice to folks? Are you readily giving yourself to folks? I have yet to say no to someone who asks genuinely for help or asks genuinely for an opinion. So, generally, I find that's the case with everyone I ask. And so there are folks who are strong around you. There are folks who are going to have deep expertise that you don't have, and you don't need to know it all.
Okay.
What you,
That's fair.
what you need to know is what a good opportunity looks like.
Hmm. Okay. So, what does a good opportunity look like in your eyes?
A good opportunity looks like something that is generally going to have a relatively high payback with a good amount of risk, but also a healthy amount of work, meaning you can work your way to that payback.
Okay.
You
Okay.
figured that out.
That's huge. That's huge. Being able to say, okay, I see the path to being able to do that. Sometimes we're not 100% sure. We think we know. You think you kind of have assessed that risk, and I call it strategic risk,
Uh,
right? And sometimes we're not 100% right. So let's shift to this last strategic risk that you've taken when you've gone to David's Bridal. Tell me a little bit about that. That whole industry is evolving, and I'm sure you see it firsthand every day. I mentioned to you that my daughter's getting married, so of course my eyes are a little bit more now on this bridal thing again. But tell me about your journey and what you're doing there for them.
well, first of all, huge congrats to your daughter.
Thank you.
It's an amazing time to get married. And, there's more inspiration than ever before in the history of time, right? In terms of what you want, how you want to do it, and what are all that. It's almost like there's too much.
Yeah.
So what we hear is that you get engaged, and the day you get engaged, you're so excited. And then you wake up the next morning feeling completely overwhelmed because the day you've been wanting and dreaming about all this time you're is now here, and there's all this pressure around being the center. And the pressure is greater than ever with social media and everything that's happening. There's so many inspirations and influencers out there, and they seem to have the perfect weddings, and they seem to have the perfect day. And it's a lot for brides today, I think.
I think you're right. I think you're right. So, how are you seeing it evolve? Explain to us a little bit about the pearl.
So the idea of Pearl is this concept that you can actually have it all, and we can help you do that. And my vision for Pearl is that the planning around the wedding should be as amazing as the day itself. There are so many micro moments in your planning journey. There's hundreds of them. There's of course the big ones that you heard about, which is the day you get engaged and your wedding day. But there's your honeymoon that's after that. There's the moment you have with your mom or your girlfriends when you're picking out that dress. There's the moment that you have with your fiance tasting the cakes. There's the moment that you're getting inspiration. We get an endorphin high when we start planning things like what we're going to wear and how we're going to look on our wedding day and what the flowers look like. There's a million micro moments that don't need to be stressful. These things could be amazing. And so that's my vision, is to make the planning journey as beautiful and as amazing as the wedding day itself, so that it's not if you're planning a wedding for 14 to 18 months, it shouldn't be stressful.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree.
It should be magical. And this is, by the way, like you're still a couple at this time exploring yourselves for the couple you're going to be, right? And so when you think about David's Bridal, it's over a 70-year-old company.
I know that's hard to imagine. I was very
Mhm.
familiar with David's Bridal on Long Island. I don't remember it when I lived in Maryland, but definitely a huge brand on Long Island.
Yeah. It is the number one wedding brand in the country. 90% of all brides, no matter what their wedding budget, no matter what their dress budget, will go to David's Bridal through the store or to davidsbridal.com to seek inspiration.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think you're right there because whenever we're looking through anything, like I went on the website
Mhm.
just to check out Pearl. I mean, it's kind of like they set the standard, right? So I think this is an opportune, awesome time to bring in something like Pearl. And I don't know if anyone else has thought about that. Like I don't, maybe I'm missing something, but I haven't
No.
seen that whole kind of approach. So I'm really going to follow you because I think
Mhm.
it should be something that's a little bit easier. Right now, it's still into the spreadsheet, sending this here. This
Yes.
is my friend gave me this. So and so said
No.
do it like that.
No.
Maybe you're going to get it to the point where they don't even need a wedding planner anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we're thinking about, I mean, we're thinking about the entire journey. So, I mean, I think there's also a space for wedding planners. I mean, there's people that want to outsource the whole thing. And we're looking at doing stuff for wedding planners too, like interface and communication with them. But I think that, if we do our jobs right, we're going to take the stress off. And it's going to be beautiful and it's going to be something you remember, because I still remember some of those micro moments in my wedding that had nothing to do with the wedding day. The wedding day, there's such a buildup to it, and it's a nice memory afterwards, but there's so much unnecessary stress that goes along with it that just doesn't need to happen.
And we
Yeah.
didn't have, well, I didn't. I don't know. I'm thinking about you as well. I didn't have that whole social media side
No,
to
I
it,
didn't
right?
either. No.
I mean, people can make things look absolutely amazing. And then, of course, we do that comparison thing. Like, oh my gosh, I should have done it that way. Oh my gosh, I like how they do that way. So we're our own, we start that monkey mind in our own head.
Yes.
I think it's so amazing that, you've kind of got to this point. So I'm sure it's very challenging. I'm sure you're able to use all of the various skills that have brought you to this point. And, I certainly wish you tremendous success. Is there anything else you want to share about the Pearl? I mean, I know it's out there live now.
Yeah.
What do you expect in the next year?
A lot. So we're building out everything we're going to do now. We are launching the first facet of it, which is getting access to brands. So we want to build, and we already have the fastest growing media and marketplace for weddings, maybe in the planet right now. And so I think for me, I have this experience with media, obviously from Facebook and other areas. And I think just bringing that to the fold and building out this network. And I'm not just thinking about the bride, I'm also thinking about the vendors. I ran small business marketing for a while, and small businesses, it's hard for them too. It's hard for them if you're a florist and you're in a small town. How do I spend my dollars? Do I buy a laptop, or do I buy this advertising unit, right? So I'm thinking about both of them. I'm thinking about both sides of the house, how to make it easier for the bride and how to make it really worthwhile for the business, so that when they're investing dollars, it's honest and it's real, and they're going to actually reach the audience that they want to reach.
Yeah, and you're creating this ecosystem, which is
Yeah.
really kind of cool to think about. What a
Yeah.
dream job! In some
Totally.
respects, that's a
Yeah.
totally,
Yeah.
if you're a mom or
Mhm.
someone who's gone through this, to bring all these elements together is pretty darn cool. So I want to wrap up and just, we had been talking a little bit about some things that you put out there in terms about looking at a promotion and some of the other mantras. Anything that you can kind of maybe sum up as to three things that you would suggest to folks who want to live their dream job, want to go after all of their various goals, whether they're a mom, going to be a mom. What are three things that maybe you can leave with them to give them as words of advice so they can live that dream and still be a great mom?
I think first and foremost is that there's nobody that's going to believe in you more than you can believe in yourself.
Mhm.
And I would say that it's really hard to question yourself and feel like you're not going to get it done, or you shouldn't do it, or maybe you're not ready to do it, or maybe you're taking on other skills, or maybe it's not the right time for you. That that voice in your head never actually leaves. And actually, I find it even more pervasive in women than men throughout my career. I've certainly had that voice and I still have that voice sometimes, but I've learned over the years, and everyone says, "Oh, Lena, you're so brave. You're so brave." No, I just learned to ignore it. Shut it out. Put on some music and work it out. Those bugs
Yeah.
are gonna work it out. So that's one. Two, I tell this to my kids. There's always gonna be somebody that's smarter than you, that maybe knows more than you, that's maybe done more than you, that seems like they're more educated, that seems like they've more accomplished. You can't control that. What you can control is your level of resilience and how hard you work. And so for me, especially having that entrepreneurial and immigrant mindset, I will outwork everyone sometimes, I feel like. And so I think that there is something to that, in that I really think that this concept of resilience is not out there enough and is not out there. But every successful person that I've met, they really put their heart into it. And especially with business owners or especially with self-made C-level executives, they are really hard workers.
You can't teach that. I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. And the resilience is important. You've got to be able to bounce back, especially if you're going to try and get to a higher level. We've all been kind of kicked and poked and punched at some point, right?
Well,
And you may feel really bad that day, but then the next day you come up and you pull your socks up and you go at it again. And it's having that fight to be able to function when something bad happens and still push through. Some of that's learned as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So, and one more thing. You gave me two.
Yeah.
We need one more.
We didn't talk about this that much. I'm surprised we didn't. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is this concept of innovation. And innovation sometimes is a mystery to people. Like, how are you so innovative? Or how did you come up with that? Or how does that work? And I go back to the example I gave you at the beginning of this call. I learned early on in my career this concept of design thinking. Another word for it is human-centered innovation or human-centered design. And all it teaches you is to explore solutions in everyday life for people. So the example I gave at the beginning of this call, where just thinking about where can I sell the most candy? Where does that meet the most demand? And that's a concept of innovation. Innovation comes when you're solving problems, real problems for people. And though I can't stress this part enough, the solutions and also the chances that I take on businesses come from real problems out there that I see in the world that nobody is addressing or not addressing to the effect that I think it could be addressed. And so when it comes to innovation, find the right problem that you think you can solve.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
you know what? That's what I've heard every entrepreneur say that's developed something you need to solve. You need to provide a solution for something that's a problem for people. So I think you, in kind of approaching this with the bride, where they're just harried, crazed, overwhelmed, if you can deliver them something that solves that problem, you score a home run. So
Mhm.
I think you're right. And that is something that is very, very important. I don't know if everyone has that mindset to think that way. I do think that is, some people are just like my husband's really good with analytical stuff. I'm much better at that kind of stuff. But I think you're right. You have to have and be in a situation that allows you to fail in that way too. Not always successful, right? You got to try it.
100%. You got
Yeah.
to try it and you got to take the risk. And I'd say innovation can come in micro doses.
Right.
It's not like I'm tackling problems this large always, right? It's, sometimes it is just where to sell your candy. And sometimes, so, right. Every day, there's an opportunity for innovation every single day. If you're
Yeah.
solving a human centered problem, we have in design thinking, we have this phrase where it's, is this a company first problem or is this a customer first problem?
Right. 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 That's great. And one final question. What kind of candy were you selling?
It was just a large, like we had Twix bars and
That's a
Hershey's
good one.
bars. Yeah.
She's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Snickers bars. The Snickers were
Snickers is the
popular.
best. I
They
know,
were
right?
popular. Yeah.
Yeah, Snickers are good. Well, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure having you. I've learned so much, and I've enjoyed your personality. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Worth Knowing. If you'd like to learn more about our guest story or connect with them, you'll find their details in the show notes. Remember, the path to worth knowing is paved with courage and insight. Stay inspired, keep striving, and continue to make a difference. Then, you must make sure to share it with others. Until next time, keep chasing those aha moments, my friends. You know, the ones that deliver results and motivate and teach the world. Worth Knowing is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content.
The Agile brand.